Welcome to the Psychology Club podcast, brought to you by Vicente Martinez High School.
Welcome everyone to the Psychology Club podcast. Today we have an exciting guest, Miss Dr. Rhonda Barovsky. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Since I have a quick question for you, did you know in high school what you wanted to do with your life?
I kind of did. I kind of knew what I wanted to do by the time I was 14 because I had all the women in my family worked at pretty menial jobs. Now, I shouldn't say menial, but at really hard jobs. And like my grandmother and my grandfather owned a butcher shop, and my grandmother worked probably 6 days a week, really long hours. And my aunt was a clerk at a grocery store, and my mother was a secretary. And I knew I wanted to work, but I knew I didn't want to work in those kind of, everybody complained about standing or their back hurting. So I had a friend whose mother was a social worker, and she used to always talk about how cool her days were and what she did and how fun they were and how she was making a big impact in the world. And I thought, well, I want to do what she does. And so I kind of made my decision really early in my life. Also, people take different roles in their family, and I was always kind of the caretaker in my family. So it kind of fit to go in a helping profession since I was already kind of in that role in my family. So for those two reasons, I did know what I wanted to do in high school.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Nikki. My question was, I've seen how social media promotes a culture of toxic positivity, and I wanted to know the difference between helpful positive thoughts or toxic positive thoughts.
I think in order to give a genuine compliment or a genuine positive remark, or like we call it stroking, it has to be really specific to the person or to the situation. Like to just say, oh, you're such a strong person. I mean, maybe that could feel good, or maybe that could feel insincere. But if somebody said, you're a really strong person because you overcame, this really challenging situation and you handled it so well, you didn't lose your temper, or you spoke about it in such a clear way, or you used really great communication skills, and I'm proud of you for doing that. So I think it's a lot more meaningful when it's very specific to you as a person and to the situation that you just overcame.
Hello, I'm Alyssa, and I was wondering, how do big events like trauma impact people's mental health and negative thoughts?
Oh, God. I should have thought that you guys were going to ask really hard questions. I wish David was here. So, trauma, trauma affects people because it impacts every aspect of who they are as a person. It can change the way you think about yourself. It can change the way you are in the world. It can change the way you think about people in your life. It can make you more fearful or more anxious or more depressed. So especially if you're not dealing with it with a friend or a counselor or a therapist or your family or anybody that you trust. And sometimes trauma can, something that happened to you when you're younger can still impact you at various ages in your life. And, in the past few years, they've done a lot of studies. I think it started at Kaiser Hospital, where they studied something called ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. And they've determined that if people have, even, a lot of them, and a lot means like 10 to 12 various types of adverse childhood experiences, it affects their mental health, but it can also affect their physical health. And it can affect your physical health throughout your entire life.
Hi, I'm Sochi, and my question was, how do daily stressors like microaggressions and racism how does that impact people's mental health?
Well, I think that's a really great question, and it's really important for us to think about microaggressions and racism and sexism and things that attack who we are as human beings affects us, and how they affect our daily lives is that when we are being attacked as a as who we are, then it creates a lot of doubt, and I think that it creates some loss of good feelings about ourselves or our family or our culture. And, sometimes we feel a loss of where we fit into the history of our country, and even the history of our family, of our religion, of our race, um, of our gender identity. And all of those things can kind of eat away at a human being, eat away at a person, so that they no longer feel good about who they are as a person. And then that could also affect how they interact with other people, because if you don't feel good about yourself, then it's more difficult to feel good about relationships that you have with other people, and you might mistrust other people and withdraw from people who you're concerned about might hurt you or who have hurt you. I mean, and you might be experiencing that with people who are in positions of authority, like your teachers or administrators, or other people who are, in important roles in our lives, like even our parents, who don't understand where we're coming from. And it kind of eats away at who we are as a person. And that has a huge impact on how we, like I said, interact, not just with ourselves and each other, but, if we feel bad about ourselves, then it makes it more difficult to perform at school or perform in our job, or, feel strong when we have to do a job interview, or, feel comfortable putting out our belief systems because we're worried about being attacked. And I think it's really important to understand the real true history of what's gone on in our country, and see that there's a lot of examples of microaggression that we're just identifying now, that we used to just kind of brush aside as being unimportant.
Hi, I'm Nani, and my question was, why do people have so many negative thoughts?
Gosh, I think if you could figure that out, you would be able to save the world. I don't know why we have negative thoughts, but I think, I'm not going to say that they're a natural part of life, because I don't actually know what is natural and what comes from our experience. I think, I don't think we're born with having negative thoughts. I think we interact with the world, and then we have experiences that we judge as negative, and then we start thinking about them, and then we create negative thoughts about what our experiences have been. And that, I'm sure that Amy, your teacher, has talked to you about, it's not an event that is in and of itself horrible, but it's how we view, I mean, there are lots of painful events and traumas and microaggressions like we just talked about. And while we're experiencing them, they're painful and they're awful. But then when we're, in retrospect, looking back at our lives, we could look at things based on our experience of them as really negative. And then out of those negative experiences have challenging feelings that, lead to anxiety and depression and low self-esteem and things like that.
Hi, I'm Raya.
Raya,
And
sorry.
basically my question was like there was a lot of research done early in your guys' career with antidepressants, but how do people react when you tell them that antidepressants doesn't work as well as they're advertised?
That is a great question too. You guys are really coming up with some really smart, provocative questions. It's interesting, like some people have, there's different reactions. Some people might feel relief because they don't want to be on medication. Some people like, whew, thank God, thanks, great. Like, what are the alternatives to being on medication? Some people may feel scared because they might have been really depressed and had relief. Antidepressants do work for some people, and they might feel like they don't want to give them up. They might not trust you when you say that. So it could be both, like kind of a thank goodness, I don't want to be on antidepressants, I feel really grateful for you for saying that. And some people may feel kind of resentment or scared or confused and not believing what you're talking about.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
So, with that, like basically, if you're taking a medication for something, but it doesn't work as you thought, but if your doctor or somebody is telling you how they like you would react on it and they don't work for you, like if they're not working for you, but you don't really know that, like I can't really explain it. But
So if you're taking medication and your doctor says kind of like this should work,
yeah, like
and then-
it's saying that it's like gonna work a certain way, and that's what you're thinking. So when you're taking them, like you feel like it's working that way, but what if it was like actually didn't do what it was supposed to be doing?
well, then you should be in communication with your doctor and work on your assertiveness skills and your communication skills so that you can honestly talk to your doctor and say, I know you think this medication should be working, but I don't feel like it's working. I mean, is there any objective data that shows that it's working? Because I'm not feeling it. And continue just talking to your doctor about what's working and what isn't working. And sometimes that can be hard because doctors can really be intimidating. Especially when they think they know better about you than you know about yourself. So continuing dialogue with your doctors is really important. So let me ask you guys a question.
Oh,
no.
I had one more question.
Oh, you had another question? Okay.
Let me take this. So I had a question. Like, I don't know. Okay, so I had a question. Like, does like like the whole cognitive therapy thing? Like, does it work for people with like personality disorders or like people like with psychosis stuff like that, or does it only work for people with like yeah, with like I don't know what's the word, like not like self-conscious depression, but like with like what was the word? It was like when self-esteem, yeah, like self-esteem cause like depression, like that, where like positive thoughts can't really change, like can't really stop you from like going into like depressive episodes, kind of like that.
Well, you're talking to me as I am a cognitive behavioral therapist, so I have my bias. Then I think that cognitive behavioral therapy in a lot of different forms can help no matter what you're going through, personality disorders or mood disorders like depression or anxiety. I think it can help no matter what. But you have to think that remember that it's cognitive behavioral. So you're talking to people about both what they think, that's the cognitive part, but you're also talking to people about how you behave. That's about your actions. I mean, maybe that cognitive behavioral therapy can work with somebody who has a variety of issues like attention deficit disorder, not just changing the way that you're thinking, but how are you acting? I mean, how's your lifestyle and your behavioral choices that you're making impacting your mental health, whatever the issues are that you're dealing with. So it's not just your thoughts, it's your actions too. And you can work on both of those things or all of those things with a cognitive behavioral therapist.
In 2019, less than 15 of children received mental health services. How can we increase support to our young people?
Oh my gosh. Only 15%?
Yeah, less than 15%.
Less than 15%. You're talking about politics now, I think. And what does our society make important to fund? And we talk about how people talk about how they love children, but our services funded that can actually provide support to children. I used to work at juvenile hall in San Francisco, and those are kids whose services have failed in lots of ways. So some things that you guys could do, I think, is lobby your state legislature and get involved in politics or organizations that support the mental health of, children and teenagers. Because it's our state legislature and our federal government that provides funding for services for everyone. And so the more you can lobby your legislature and get involved in the politics and policies, you might have a huge impact in the world. Okay, so here's my question to you guys. What made you interested in the psychology club?
Wait, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. What made you interested in being in the psychology club?
I think it was, well, for me, I can't talk for anyone here. For me, it was just to learn a little more about how to help people and more how to help myself as well.
Uh-huh.
Because I usually neglect myself a lot. And I tend to do that because I try to help others without helping myself. So I really wanted to like reflect and see if I could grow a little more.
Cool. You know, Ian, I wanted to follow up on my answer with you.
Mhm.
It is true that I kind of made up my mind what I wanted to do when I was 14, but I also explored other things. Like when I was in college, I thought, how could somebody make up their mind when they're 14 what they want to do? So I
Mhm.
did take classes in different areas to make sure that I was on the path that was right for me. But I just got an email from somebody today who wants to join this class that I teach on Wednesdays, who's 47 and had one career and switched and didn't and was unhappy. So he's switching careers now. And Amy Spector and I have a close friend whose name is Sunny, and he was an engineer, had a big job at a tech company. And when he was in his 30s, he kind of had a light bulb went off on his head, and he found he figured out that he was really unhappy being an engineer, and he went back to school to become a therapist. So people decide what they want to do at different times in their life, and that's okay too.
Mhm. Actually, can I do a follow-up question for that?
Sure.
During your studies for mental health, have you ever like broken down or like ever thought about like swaying from it?
Swaying from it.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, um, I used to work with people who were convicted sex offenders.
Oh,
Yeah. And one time one of my clients reoffended, committed a crime
Mhm.
while they were in treatment with me. And it's kind of a long story, but they did disclose, he did tell me what happened. And there were clearly consequences with the criminal justice system, but all I could think about was, did I do something wrong? And now because of maybe I did something wrong, there's somebody else that was injured. And I cried about that for a few days. And I actually um, decided I had to switch the focus of my work to do something that wouldn't cause me so much trauma. But yeah, it's kind of one time I was working with somebody who was suicidal, and like, sometimes homicide and suicide are different sides of the same coin. And as I was talking to this person, he started talking about harming me. Like, I won't kill myself, but I could kill you.
Oh.
And I thought, oh, I don't think I like that. Um, and so, sometimes when you work with people who are on the edge, you have to really be strong with yourself. Like we call, like, kind of creating a barrier between you and them so that you can protect your own heart. But you have to be careful too, that you don't want to be so protected that you become cynical. Like probably a long time ago, before you guys were born, there was a bombing that went off in, I think, Oklahoma, in a federal building. And in this building, there was a daycare center. So, sadly, a lot of children were killed. And there was a picture in the newspaper of a firefighter carrying out a baby that had died in this bombing. And when I was at work and I saw this picture in the newspaper, and I started crying. And one of the women that I worked with, who was a lot older than me at that time, was like, "You better get yourself together. You shouldn't be crying." And I thought, well, I never want to get to the place where I'm so defended that painful things don't really affect me. I mean, it's okay to cry and feel bad when horrible things happen, because that's a natural response.
I apologize for all that happened.
It's okay.
Do you have any more questions for us?
Well, does everybody?
Yeah.
What do other people think? Why did other people join the psychology club? What are you getting out
Oh
of it?
yeah, my bad. Everyone else finished? My bad.
God, Ian.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Ian talked.
I'm a,
I thought we were done.
I'll answer the question. I'm gonna be 100% honest. Basically, I joined a psychology club because I didn't want to deal with my 6th period teacher. So I just came here and I low key was like, I don't want to go here because it's gonna be boring and stuff like that. But it's low key fun.
So have you decided? Are you glad you're here now?
Yeah, I don't want to be there.
It's better than your 6th period teacher, but it's still a little fun on its own, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just got to the school like not even a month ago. And it was just something to get like out of class. Like for me, I always struggle with school. And if it wasn't an actual activity that I needed to get a grade for, my 6th period class is study hall. So if I ain't got to do work, I will get out of that class. Because if I
Okay,
had
but
to, I would just sit in a hole.
Are you the same as Ria though? That once you may have come here because you don't want to be in your study hall, but now that you're in the psychology class, are you getting anything out of it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Anybody else?
Oh.
Damn, it interrupted me. I'm like kind of on the same train because when I first transferred here, I didn't know psychology club was a thing until Nikki dragged me here on like my first Wednesday. And I was like, oh, cool. That sounds like something I'm into. Cause I thought we were gonna like have more like, I don't know, like debate or something. So I like debating. But yeah, it's fun.
Good.
Like half the people left though, but that's fine.
I joined psychology club like literally on my first day here because I was actually playing Uno at the Uno table with everyone, and Miss Spector was like, you know what? There's psychology club today. You should join. I'm like, psychology club. Hold up. It's like, do I get to get out of class? She's like, yep. I'm like, I
I'm in.
gotcha. It's like, I'll come. And I
Good.
love it too. Because I do like things with mental health because I do suffer from like mental health problems. So, and it's always interests me as well. Like, how do other people see this world and how do other people think like
Mhm.
differently than I do, and people's situations that made them who they were. It's really interesting what the brain can do and what the brain can process. So
True, isn't it?
I would say I just joined on a whim. I didn't really have any expectations, like what it would be like. I don't know. I've never used to join clubs, so I just said, why not? And tried something.
And so now that you've joined it, what have you gotten out of it?
A lot, really. It's like, I didn't expect to be so, I don't know. I participate a lot and
Cool.
it's not something I used to do. So like, it's been pretty different. I like it.
Great. Well, it was so fun talking to you guys.
Okay, Ian, you can wrap it up now.
Okay, so
Now you cracked up.
so now do you have any other questions for us?
No, that's it.
Okay then. Thank you, Dr. Barovsky, for coming on to you today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was really an honor.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.